3.
Hi, I have another list ready. You know how it is with teachers. They're always writing notes. Okay. A lady was standing by a friend and the friend said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear about your uncle, that he fell into a beer vat and drowned." And the lady said, "Oh, it wasn't all that awful." And the other lady said, "Well, what do you mean?" She said, "Well, twice he came up and asked for more pretzels." One time I was supposed to be in a hat style show, and when it came my turn to be fitted for a hat, the lady looked at every hat she had in the room, and finally she looked at me and said, "Your head is too big." And I thought, uh-oh, not good news. Our little son, Michael, when he was small, did not know that his granddaddy had one glass eye. But down at the train station one night, he looked up at his granddaddy and said, "Granddaddy, do you know that one of your eyes is all bent back?" And that's how he found out about that. And I never saw that situation happen again, ever. My brother had a little friend down the street who was about 2.5, and he was 2.5, and he called her Sally Baby, and she called him Stark Baby, his last name. One day Stark Baby walked over and was trying to give her a kiss, and Sally Baby said, No, it's too hot to love." And in St. Louis, it definitely can get too hot to love. One day my mama's husband, my daddy, came home from work, and Mom said a lady called and said that you never sent in your house payment for this month. And she said, I told her right away, "Oh, there's a mistake, because my husband does not make mistakes." And he said, "You didn't tell a stranger that I never make a mistake." And she said, "Well, it's true." Sure enough, the very next day the lady called and said, "Forgive me, I made a mistake. There's no problem here at all." So Mother won out on that one. Once I had a date before I met Paul, and the date and I was sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden there was a terrible wailing. That's all I can say to explain it. And my date said, "What is that noise?" And I said, "Well, my Michael has some pet snakes, and one of them is swallowing a frog. He just fed it." Well, my date jumped up without a word, ran to the door, and left. And I never heard from him again. One time a man knocked on the door back before I met Paul, and I was living with the 3 kids in a little apartment. And he said, "Is your husband home?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, I'd like to come back and talk to you about what I want to sell you, but I want to talk to both of you at the same time." And so he said, "When do you think your husband will get home?" I said, "I'm not really sure. He left 7 years ago." I was at a Presbyterian teen conference at a place called Mo Ranch, and it was our break time to swim. And I'd had a good time in the pool, and I was sitting on a bench at the side of the pool by myself, just watching what was going on. All of a sudden, a man's head came up out of the water. He opened his mouth. I didn't hear a sound, and then he went under again. And I thought, that's strange. And I kept watching him. And about twice more he did the same thing. So happily, I yelled for help. And he came over to me later and he said, when I was able to get my head above water, I had no strength to call out. but you were watching me and you saved my life. And that gives me Jesus chills right now. One time I came downstairs from upstairs and my daddy looked at me carefully and said, "You just got a Tony hair wave, right?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, is that what you wanted?" And he was looking carefully at my hairdo, and I'm not sure he thought I would have wanted what he saw. Laura was so funny. One day she called up and said, "Mom, I've got little bitty Michaela and I have a few pictures of my new little girl. But I have about 100 pictures of Taylor because you're his caregiver all day, so you take him everywhere they're making pictures, and just take me off your list because I think 100 pictures of Taylor will do me." So I did. I took her off the list. We should have all been bears. If we thought about it, we would have, because nobody cares how fat they get. The older they are, the more valuable they are, and everybody everywhere loves bears. Michael always had very dark hair and very dark skin, much unlike his two sisters who were typical blondes. One time on the train, he was standing and talking to me and the girls, and the hostess of the train came by and said, "Little boy, I think you better go back to your own family." And she indicated a Mexican family down at the end of the car. And I looked at her and I said, "He really is with his own family." And she looked a little embarrassed. One time a visitor in Mom's house, when they had several ladies over for lunch, she said, "Oh, Mary Louise, there is a mouse in your fireplace, a live mouse." And Mother said, "Yes, I know, and just wait, because pretty soon our pet cat is going to come out and play with him, and that will be quite a show." One time Mother was shopping to get a couple of new handkerchiefs for somebody, and their prices were really high. And finally Mom got the salesgirl and said, "I don't understand. The prices are so high on your handkerchiefs." And the salesgirl looked at her and said, "Hell, honey, they're hand-did." So Mother never forgot that. Hell, honey, they're hand-did. 'Tis the simple joys, the simplest pleasures, the heart remembers and always treasures. It's the simple joys, the simplest pleasures, the heart remembers and dearly treasures. I love you. Goodbye.